got the coming of Galactus. Everything you need to know about the Fantastic Four.
What's up, my comic comrades? Yes, Marvel just released the first trailer for Fantastic Four First Steps, and like many of you, we could not wait to get a vibe for the first
Bro, I
family's
can't wait
introduction
for
to the
Fantastic
MCU. Well,
Four.
we've
I'm
watched
excited
it
for that.
multiple times, actually, and we're here to give you our initial reaction and thoughts on it, because there's a lot going on. But this
Fantastic!
trailer also
Ha
has us a lot more
ha!
excited for the movie, so as a bonus, we've got two variant rewinds to give you the breakdowns of the history of the Fantastic Four and the history of Galactus. And I will tell you right now, the history of the Fantastic Four rewind episode
That's
is
on
almost 10
4.
years old now, so when you see my youthful aura and the full head of hair, don't be alarmed.
Hey,
Try not to
yo.
get too jealous. Having said that, we're also working on an updated and greatly expanded Ultimate History of Fantastic Four for early summer, and we're really excited for that, but these rewind episodes are a great starting point. Anyway, that Fantastic Four trailer though, first and foremost, the tone and vibe of this first trailer is pitch perfect. I mean, the fact that this movie takes place in the 60s, lining up with how Stan Lee and Jack Kirby originally introduced them in 1961, is an absolutely
Fantastic.
amazing idea. It's just a brilliant tribute to the Fantastic Four Issue 1 in the classic and iconic era of Marvel that really launched the Marvel Universe to a whole new level of pop culture relevance. It's an especially smart move because it tells fans from the very first frame that we're getting a true interpretation of the Fantastic Four, even set in the original time Stan Lee created them. And coming off a number of recent failures, it's a clever gift to the fans right up front. We even get to see the Fantastic car, which fits the era vibe perfectly. And the entire trailer holds true to this idea. Pretty much every detail looks ripped right off the pages of the original Fantastic Four comic. For instance, Thing looks absolutely incredible. He's being played and voiced by Eben Moss of the Bear fame, and has quite a few pieces of dialogue in the trailer that play really well and give you a great sample of his character. It does look like there are still a few visual effects that need work, specifically with his mouth.
Bro, it's gonna be funny when he's in Marvel Rivals.
Either way, from a design standpoint, this version of the Thing is basically
Funny
spot
and
on
fun.
to the traditional comic version, and a massive upgrade from any live-action interpretations of Thing to date. I mean, we finally got that classic pronounced brow line. He looks perfect. But we also see our first official look at Herbie, the Fantastic Four's robot companion, who helps them around the Baxter building. And he has a really fun interaction with the Thing at the beginning of the trailer when he's making them all dinner. We also get to see our first look at Sue Storm's powers, seeing her turn invisible and even using her force field.
That looks badass right there.
Scientific spectrum effect too. I really like that this teaser trailer is pushing that Sue is the backbone of this team, the glue that keeps it together. We also get to see
That's the
Johnny
mom.
Storm, played by Joseph
The
Quinn,
mom of the
Stranger
group.
Things and Gladiator fame. He's one of my favorite new actors who's been gaining steam in recent years, and we get to see him flame on and zipping around New York, and it looks glorious. He doesn't talk much in the trailer, but his body language alone says he's gonna nail Johnny Storm, and his young-minded reacts to his later attitude. The trailer also gave us a quick look at John Malkovich as the yet-to-be-revealed character he will be playing. But his look definitely hints towards Ivan Kragoff, also known as Red Ghost, who is an evil Soviet scientist and one of the Fantastic Four's oldest enemies, so that would be interesting. But one of the notable things missing from the trailer, however, was Mr. Fantastic using his powers. Yes, we see Reed Richards quite a bit in the trailer.
They didn't want to give you everything yet.
Abilities, which I guess makes sense because they're clearly still in post-production, and his power set can look really cheesy if the CGI is not done properly. As everyone knows, Mr. Fantastic stretches like a piece of Laffy Taffy, so maybe they just wanted to make sure they nailed down the effects rather than release something that wasn't fully polished, which would just generate another bad fan reaction.
Yeah, because fans stay crying about something.
David Cornsweet flying as Superman. I didn't even think it looked that bad, but a ton of people were tearing it apart because the CGI wasn't perfect on his face.
Oh my God.
The Google Eye comparisons are pretty funny, but I digress. Anyway, another thing we didn't get a glimpse of in this trailer is Shala Ball, which is the female version of Silver Surfer played by Julia Gardner that will be appearing in this movie. But again, that's not really a surprise because they're not going to drop everything on us in the first trailer. Which leads us to the biggest takeaway for the trailer, no pun intended.
Bro, that shit is gonna be so badass.
We first see his giant silhouette looming over Manhattan before getting a full-on back shot
Galactus
towering over the Statue of Liberty. And I'm gonna tell you right now, it once again looks ripped right out of the comic books, which is such a massive win for longtime Marvel and Fantastic Four fans because as we know, back
Bro, that's what I don't understand. Just use the comics to make a movie, bro.
Cloud storm. But now we're finally getting
They try to
Stan Lee
complicate
and
shit.
Jack Kirby intended, a giant cosmic being that arrives to eat Earth. Words cannot describe how happy I am to see the Fantastic Four fight Galactus properly in live action. And then of course the trailer ends on a hero shot of the Fantastic Four lined up in their classic John Byrne blue and white costumes, in an image that very much mirrors the Beatles from the same era, visually relaying that the Fantastic Four are also the rock stars of their era. All in all, based on this teaser trailer, it seems like the Fantastic Four First Steps movie is gearing up to be a much-needed win for Marvel. And the very fact that Marvel released the Fantastic Four trailer now, stealing spotlight from the Brave New World just a week before the theaters, kind of tells you that Marvel Studios knows they need to make a quick pivot to give fans something else.
They
to be
should have
excited
waited.
about. At least that seems to be the case. Either way, it worked, I guess, because this trailer looks great and it has us very excited for more Fantastic Four. In fact, let's just dive right into their comic book history, shall we?
Why not?
Let's start at the very beginning and the reasons of why and how the Fantastic Four was created. It all started when Stan Lee's publisher found out that DC Comics, which at the time was called National Comics, had a book called The Justice League of America, which was selling very well. And of course, as we all know, the Justice League is made up of a bunch of different superheroes. So Stan Lee's publisher said, I want you to come up with a book that consists of a team of superheroes. So Stan did, but he didn't want to do the same old thing
The
where
Fantastic
the heroes wore costumes
Four.
and masks and had secret identities. And the girl was a damsel in distress, always needing to be rescued. So Stan the man thought, how could I make this superhero team different? First thing he changed is they would have no secret identity. Second, the girl on the team was going to be as valuable a member as the other three guys. Third, he didn't want to do the Superman Lois Lane thing where the love interest didn't know the superhero's true identity. So he made Mr. Fantastic and the Invisible Woman engaged, being fully aware of what each other does. And instead of the typical teenage sidekick, he gave the team a younger member.
That's why it's so different.
But made him the younger brother of the Invisible Woman. So when she got married, he would become the brother-in-law to Mr. Fantastic to make it a little family and feel a little more realistic. Lastly, Stan wanted a fourth member who was really different from the rest of the team. So he made him strong and half
The
monster
Thing.
and called him the Thing. He also wanted him to supply a lot of comic relief for the book. So in a nutshell, as you could probably tell, Stan wanted to make a superhero team as close to real human beings who might have possessed superpowers as possible. Stan Lee created the characters alongside penciler Jack Kirby. Lee created the synopsis for the first Fantastic Four story, then gave it to Kirby, who then drew the entire story. Kirby turned in his penciled art pages to Stan, who added dialogue and captions. This approach to creating comics would become known as the Marvel Method. It worked so well for Lee and
Marvel
Kirby that they used
Method.
it from then on, and the Marvel Method became standard for the company within a year. So that's the origin of how and why Stan Lee invented them, but now it's time to look at their comic book origin. They first appeared in Fantastic Four issue 1 in November of 1961. In their comic book origin, Reed Richards is a scientist
1961.
and the inventor of the first spaceship
Damn.
capable of reaching planets beyond our moon. After a lot of planning, expense, and hard work, the ship was built and was nearing its launch date. However, as the launch neared, the federal government was about to cut funding from the flight. Reed decided there was no choice but to launch the ship before the whole effort was scrapped and wasted. Reed invited his girlfriend and future wife, Susan Storm, along for the trip, and her brother Johnny Storm insisted on coming along in order to keep her safe. Wanting a pilot with both the ability and the guts to make the flight, Reed turned to his former college roommate and very close friend, Ben Grimm, a highly accomplished and former test pilot for the United States Air Force. Reed's crew waited until the changing of guards that night and then sneaked onto the ship and launched before any planes could be used to intercept them or shoot them down using missiles. Successful in leaving Earth's atmosphere, they were halfway along on their mission when they entered a subspace storm and were hit by intense cosmic rays, earlier than they expected and stronger
How
than
they got their
expected. This intense
powers.
cosmic ray storm had strange and disorienting effects on the crew, making them unable to continue the trip. They turned back and returned to Earth, crash landing in a small opening in a forest area. They survived the crash landing but were radically changed. Ben felt his body become heavy and found he had been turned into a monster. Reed tried to calm him down and restrain him when he realized that he had stretched and wrapped his body around Ben, finding out that he now had elastic stretching abilities.
Bro, that's
Johnny
in
Blaze,
the-
Sue, turned invisible. They soon managed to calm themselves down and agreed to use their
Been watching that Fantastic Four series that they got on Disney Plus, the old one, and that's what they did right
newfound
there.
powers for the good of humanity and stay together as a team. Johnny called himself the Human Torch.
That same
Sue took
thing.
the name of
They
the
were
little
like in
girl
the
and later
forest or
changed it to the
something.
Invisible Woman. Ben chose the name The Thing, and Reed decided to call himself Mr. Fantastic. And bam, Marvel's first superhero team was born, the Fantastic Four. Now, being a superhero
Fantastic.
team, of course, they needed to have a base of operations. I mean, every superhero team has one, if not multiple, over the years. The Justice League has the Watchtower and Hall of Justice. The Avengers have the Avengers Mansion and Avengers Tower, and so on. And the Fantastic Four is no different. They've had several different headquarters
The
over
Baxter
the years.
Building.
Most notably is the Baxter Building located in New York City. It was here Mr. Fantastic made many tools and gadgets.
Bro, they got
that helped
everything in New
Fantastic
York,
Four
bro.
over the years.
In
Like
the
Fantastic
MCU.
Four car, which could fly and be split apart to be individually driven by each member. Reed Richards also created the unstable molecules, which are used for their costumes. This allows Reed Richards' costume to stretch when he stretches, the Invisible Woman to go invisible with her, and the Human Torches not to burn up when he flames on. They also have built-in computers in their suits. What's cool to note about their costumes is that they didn't start wearing them until issue 3 of the Fantastic Four. Like I said earlier, Stan Lee wanted the Fantastic Four to have no secret identities, so in the comics they make no effort to maintain them. Instead, they maintain a high public profile and enjoy enjoy celebrity status for their scientific and heroic contributions to society. At the same time, they are often prone to arguing and even fighting with one another. Despite their bickering though, the Fantastic Four consistently proves themselves to be a cohesive and formidable team in times of crisis. Reed and Sue eventually married in 1965 in Fantastic Four Annual Issue 3, and it became a celebrity event. The couple continued their
That's gonna be a Marvel Rivals tomorrow.
Later, Sue would become
the
pregnant
wedding
with a baby boy, whom they would name Franklin Richards. They would soon come to find out that Franklin was an Omega-level mutant possessing high omnipotent psionic powers and vast reality manipulating abilities. Even at a young age, he was one of the most powerful beings on Earth. A few years ago, Marvel decided
that's
to do
who Galactus is gonna be after.
And all us longtime comic book readers know, when a publisher decides to do something huge or something that will change the universe forever, 9 times out of 10, that means someone is dying. And this was no exception. They killed off the Human Torch. While the group was in the negative zone trying to close the gate through which an annihilation wave were planning to enter Earth's atmosphere, Johnny Storm, aka Human Torch, sacrificed himself to close the gate manually on the wrong side of the portal. The seeming demise of the Human Torch ripped the Fantastic Four apart, and the group known as the Future Foundation was disbanded. For those of you who don't know who the Future Foundation are, they were originally a group of young brilliant minds put together by Mr. Fantastic to bring humanity into a greater future after his dissatisfaction with Earth's leading scientific community. So after the Fantastic Four and Future Foundation disbanded due to Human Torch's death, all the other members of the Fantastic Four joined the Future Foundation team, including the new member Spider-Man. But of course, as longtime comic book readers know, once again, no one in comics really stays dead except for Uncle Ben. During an attempt by Iris to open the portal in the Baxter building, Johnny manages to escape from his prison cell in the negative zone. As the portal opens, Johnny is reunited with Spider-Man. Johnny then flies into the sky, creating a flaming number 4 and unites the other members of the Future Foundation on top of the remains of the Baxter building.
They need to go ahead and put them in Marvel Rivals.
Mentioning the Silver Surfer, as he first appeared in the Fantastic Four issue 48, being Galactus' herald and a scout for planets that Galactus could feed on. He ended up turning on Galactus and helped the Fantastic Four beat Galactus to save Earth. As for some Fantastic Four villains, they have 2 of the most popular and well-known villains in comic books, Doctor Doom and Galactus. But they also have some other great villains like the Skrulls, Mole Man, Annihilus, Dragon Man, Claw, and so on. Now, for those of you who watch all my History of episodes, you know at the end of them I give reading recommendations for the character or team I'm talking about, so that's exactly what I'm gonna do. You have Fantastic Four Masterworks Volume 1, The Coming of Galactus, and Fantastic Four issues 48 through 50, This Land Is Mine, and Fantastic Four issues 246 through 247, the first appearance of Doctor Doom in Fantastic Four issue 5, Fantastic Four Volume 1, New Departure, New Arrivals, The Wedding of Reed Richards and Sue Storm in Fantastic Four Annual 3, Ultimate Fantastic Four Volume 1, and lastly, FF Volume 1. Those are just a few suggestions to get you reading some Fantastic Four goodness. Alright, so that gives you our simplified take on the history of the Fantastic Four, and like I said earlier, we'll have an expanded Ultimate History of episode on them closer to the movie's release. But now let's take a look at the history of the big bad for the movie, Galactus. Galactus first appeared in Fantastic Four issue 48 in March of 1966. And as I mentioned in the open, he was created by none other than the kings of comics themselves, Stan Lee and Jack Kirby. Lee and Kirby created Galactus to be a breakaway from the normal supervillain, as Galactus was introduced as a godlike figure and or force of nature that feeds on the energy of living planets. And even though that seems like a villainous thing to do, he doesn't look at things the way humans do. He's not concerned about morals and judgment, he just knows he has to feed. He's like a dominant predator in that way, where he just happens to be higher in the food chain
or he's gonna die.
Beings in the universe, which in turn
which is understandable, I guess.
Rather than just giving my 2 cents here, here's a quote from Kirby himself about how and why he came up with Galactus. Quote, "My inspirations were the fact that I had to make sales and come up with characters that were no longer stereotypes. In other words, I couldn't depend on gangsters. I had to get something new. For some reason, I went to the Bible and I came up with Galactus. And there I was in front of this tremendous figure, who I knew very well because I've always felt him. I certainly couldn't treat him in the same way I could any ordinary mortal. And I remember in my first story, I had to back away from him to resolve that story. The Silver Surfer is, of course, the fallen angel. When Galactus relegated him to Earth, he stayed on Earth, and that was the beginning of his adventures.
It must have been fun making comics.
In comics. They were above mythic figures, and of course, they were the first gods. End quote. Yeah, that's pretty freaking awesome, and because of this, he's one of the most complex characters or villains in all of comics, which is a massive reason why he's so popular amongst comic fans. So I'd say Lee and Kirby succeeded when trying to make a character that isn't a cookie cutter. Galactus is the sole survivor of the universe that existed before the Big Bang. He was born on the planet Ta billions of years ago. Ta was a planet with the
Ha
most
ha
advanced
ha.
technology in the universe, as well as a paradise. And on this planet lived Galen, the man who would become Galactus. Galen was a man of science and warned his world of approaching doom, all Jor-El style, except this was way more severe. You see, the approaching doom
Always
would
these
not only kill the planet
scientists.
Ta, but the entire universe. And unfortunately, his warning proved true, and the very atoms of the universe started to change. The people of Ta soon began to die from radiation poisoning. Even their advanced technology couldn't save them. At this point, Galen and a few crew members got into a ship to fly into the terminal point of the universe to sacrifice themselves in a last-ditch effort to save their planet. But wouldn't you know it, everyone on the ship died except for Galen. But he didn't get off that easy. The sentience of the universe, yeah, apparently that's a thing, told him both of them must die. So the being combined with Galen, and they became part of a new universe, saying, in time beyond time shall be born a new universe, and into that universe there shall be one entity like no other, a living organism who possesses the matchless power and raging appetite of a galaxy. But he shall be more than a galaxy. He shall be a galactic ravager. He shall be Galactus. Anyway, thus Galactus was created, as was his starship and the embodiments of death and eternity. It's not easy creating a new universe. There's a lot of pieces. Long story short, a Watcher found Galactus' starship and was quite intrigued. So he decided to pry a bit. But a Watcher is supposed to do just that, watch, and not interfere. His interference caused Galactus to awake. Once awake, Galactus learned to control and use his power, and thus created a body and containment suit for himself to regulate all of his cosmic energies. Eventually, he would go back to sleep, at which point he would be fired upon during a space war and awoken again. Apparently, people don't like Galactus to sleep. I guess they never heard of the term, don't poke the bear. This time, however, his incubation was complete, and it would mark the first time he fed upon
That's
the
why he
energy of the
started
planet
feeding on
and fed
these
upon the
planets.
planet of the Archaeopians. Those who survived swore vengeance on the World Devourer and began hunting him, eventually calling themselves the Wanderers. After Galactus destroyed this world, he knew that besides having the power of destruction, he had the power of creation. So he began to rebuild the world, which took a millennia. But when it was completed, he named it Ta-2. It's virtually indestructible and is the greatest source of energy within eternity. I don't even know how that makes sense, but it's a thing. If that wasn't crazy enough, Galactus can call it to him from any location in the universe, all Mjolnir style. But now that you know his origin, let's talk about story arcs and publication history. Before Galactus found out about Earth, he went to the planet of Zenla to feed upon it. Zenla is the home world of Norrin Radd, the man who would become Silver Surfer. When Galactus arrived to feed upon the planet's energy, Norrin pleaded with Galactus saying, if you drain our energy, you drain our lives. You dare slay an entire race? Galactus replies, I have no wish to harm any who exist, but think you this, if your own life depended upon stepping on an anthill, you would not hesitate. In order to live, Galactus must have energy which only a healthy planet can provide. If some must fall so that Galactus may endure, it is lamentable. Silver Surfer then replies, but there are other planets, other worlds where no intelligent life exists. Find the world such as that, do with it what you will, for even ants have a right to life. Galactus says, alas, I cannot comply. I have no time to seek such worlds. Had I a herald to probe the universe for me, then many worlds such as this would I spare, but there is no such one. Norrin then says, I have an offer. If a herald you desire, then a herald I shall be. Let me probe the heavens, scan the stairways, roam the endless cosmos for you. All this will I do if you will spare my people. Spare Zenla.
They just fled the planet.
Norrin Radd, consider well what you have offered. He who assumes the mantle of Herald of Galactus shall do so forevermore. And Radd says, if such be my destiny, willingly do I accept it. And boom, just like that, Galactus uses his powers to turn Norrin into the Silver Surfer, saying, at the command of the Galactus, you have fallen. And now at my command once again, I bid you rise. After
Galactus made him.
For one reason or another, he ends up at Earth and calls Galactus to come feed upon it. Although the Fantastic Four weren't down for this, so the Thing went all clobbering time and punched Silver Surfer off the top of a skyscraper. But the Watcher says, no Thing, he is no longer our problem.
They have that in the Fantastic Four series too.
Who rides the skyways. The danger is Galactus, for he is the ultimate danger, perhaps the final danger. I sense his universe-spanning sphere entering Earth's atmosphere now. He has received the Silver One signal. And on the final page of Fantastic Four issue 48, we see Galactus saying, my journey is ended. This planet shall sustain me until it has been drained of all elemental life. And he says all this while apparently wearing his Christmas outfit. This leads us to Fantastic Four issue 49, where Alicia Masters, a friend of the Fantastic Four, is put in charge of taking care of Silver Surfer after he was knocked unconscious by Thing. During her time with the Surfer, Surfer takes a liking to Alicia, and she's able to convince
he's
him
gonna
to
help
save
them
her
out.
planet. Meanwhile, with the help of the Watcher, Johnny Storm was
Or
sent
that
to
was
the
exactly
warship
how it was
Galactus'
on the
planet
series.
and was able to obtain the Ultimate Nullifier.
I
One of the
just
most
watched
powerful weapons
this
in the
episode
entire Marvel Universe. With the
like
Silver Surfer
yesterday.
turning on Galactus and the help of the Fantastic Four, they were able to hold him off long enough until Reed Richards threatened him with the Ultimate Nullifier. Galactus literally says, "In the name of the Eternal Cosmos, put it down. Your feeble mind cannot begin to comprehend its power. You hold the means to destroy a galaxy, to lay waste to a universe." Then after a speech from the Watcher saying how courageous the beings of Earth are, Galactus says, "I grow weary. The prize is not worth the battle. Let the human surrender his weapon, and I shall tarry here no longer." The Watcher then tells Richards, "Do as he says."
He said,
The
"I'm a
promise of
dick,
Galactus
cause
is
y'all on
nothing
some
to himself.
bullshit."
His word can never be questioned. So Reed Richards does, but as punishment for Surfer betraying Galactus, he vanishes the Silver Surfer to Earth, putting a force field around Earth, allowing the Silver Surfer to not leave past a certain distance. But of course, Surfer would eventually find a way to leave Earth, and Galactus would eventually come back and fight the Avengers, along with other heroes. But nonetheless, this was Galactus' first story arc, and an epic one at that. Jack Kirby is a legend for a reason. What's really crazy about this story is that Kirby didn't intend for Galactus to reappear in order to preserve the character's presence. So if he did reappear, it would be like, holy crap, this is a big freaking deal. But fan popularity got Stan Lee to ask Kirby for Galactus to reappear, at which point
They
the
couldn't
character
get enough
became a
of it.
mainstay in the Marvel Universe. If you haven't caught on yet, though created by both of them, Galactus was really Kirby's baby. But though Galactus would reappear throughout the 60s, in order to preserve the character's mystique, so to speak, the next two appearances were cameos where he didn't even talk, in Thor issue 134 and Daredevil issue 37. But after this, the character had a lot to do for the first time since Fantastic Four 48 through 50 and Fantastic Four issue 72 through 77. And like I said earlier, Galactus would return to Earth for the first time in Thor issue 160. And then we even got his origin
He
in
whooped
Thor
Thor's
issue
ass
169.
too.
Galactus would go on to be in many, many story arcs. Literally, I could go on all day, like the Infinity Gauntlet, Galactus the Devourer, and Annihilation Heralds of Galactus. Speaking of Heralds, we didn't really get into this too
Okay,
much.
give us more
Surfer,
Galactus movies.
Actually, I think I just gave myself an episode idea. Yeah, we definitely have to do a Heralds of Galactus episode and talk about all the Heralds he's had over the years. Anyway, the point is,
Yeah, like
Galactus
3
has
different
no
ones
shortage of good stories,
in this
and I'll be sure to recommend some
Fantastic
of my
Four
favorites
series.
in reading recommendations. But now it's time to see how powerful this godlike being is and powers and abilities. First and foremost, Galactus is easily one of the most powerful characters in all of Marvel. And a big reason for that is because he has the power cosmic, which is a virtually limitless power. Because of this, he can manifest almost countless ranges of powers and abilities depending on what he needs, like manipulating creation, matter, energy, and universal sources. Galactus is basically the definition of planet-level threat, as he could blast energies powerful enough to destroy entire planets. He can even open up wormholes and portals to other dimensions and time. He can also read minds across the universe, reconstruct matter, or transmute
So he
it
could
into
basically
any
do
form he would
anything.
like, and even manipulate elements of the periodic table. He could also erase memories through manipulating souls and grant power upon any living being, or even resurrect the dead. Again, with the power cosmic, his powers are essentially
That's why he don't want
limitless. He's a
Franklin
god. It would actually
Richards to
easier
be
do the things
alive.
he couldn't do than the things he could do. Galactus also possesses technology that works with his biology, which is so complex even the smartest minds don't understand it. His technology in general is among, if not the best, in the entire universe. I mean, I don't really know what more to say. I could go on and on. No joke, on his official stat page, he has more than 60 powers and abilities.
Damn.
It's ridiculous. But the sum of it is, dude is a god. He can create life, destroy entire planets with a single touch. He can do anything he wants, which is why he has nicknames like the Restorer of Worlds, the Planet Eater, Lifebringer, and of course, the Devourer of Worlds.
The Devourer.
But by now, I'm sure you guys want some good Galactus reading recommendations. So check out
Or
Fantastic Four Behold Galactus Marvel Select Edition, Galactus the Devourer, Fantastic Four Resurrection of Galactus, Fantastic Four In Search for Galactus, and Silver Surfer Epic Collection, When Called Galactus. That should be enough to get you all started. Well, that's a wrap for us, my people. Let us know what you think.
And that's it for me too. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe.